How the real estate business is done in America has drastically changed. As of August 17, 2024, these sweeping changes are the new law of the land for real estate agents and their clients throughout the country. And these changes will impact how you buy and sell houses. I'm J.R. St. Julien with the St. Julien Real Estate Group of eXp Realty, and I'm here to chat with you about how these changes will affect how you buy and sell homes. You may have seen the headlines about the National Association of Realtors lawsuit, and this is what has resulted in these changes. Now, this video is not going to be about my opinion of the results of that lawsuit. It's done, it's been decided. My opinion will not change what has been decided, so we aren't going to waste any time talking about that. But what we are going to talk about is what has changed and how that will affect you. Prior to this change, when a seller signed a listing agreement with an agent to sell their home, in that agreement, the seller and the agent agreed to both the fee that the seller would pay the listing agent, i.e. the agent selling that home, and the buyer's agent, the agent representing the future buyer that would eventually purchase that home. Now, those fee amounts were set at the time that that listing agreement was signed, and the fee that would be paid to the buyer's agent was then advertised in the MLS so that all agents could see exactly how much they would get paid if they represented the buyer that purchased that property. The buyer didn't have to bring any additional funds to the table to pay for their agent, as their agent was paid out of the proceeds from the sale of that property by the seller. And this is just how it's always been done. Well, now this is changing. No longer will the seller decide on the fee that will be paid to the buyer's agent when signing the listing agreement. The seller and the listing agent will only agree on the fee that the seller will pay to that listing agent. Any additional fees to be paid by the seller to either the buyer or to the buyer's agent will have to be negotiated as part of the offer to purchase the home. Additionally, since no fee has been established, there is no longer advertising of buyer-agent compensation allowed in the MLS. So now when an agent is looking at a property in the MLS, they have no idea if or how much the seller will be willing to contribute towards their compensation for their services. That is to be worked out through the offer and the negotiation process. Now, since there's no payment guarantee and no one works for free, there's now a requirement for the buyer's agent to have a signed buyer agency agreement, very similar to the listing agreement, with their client before they're allowed to even open a door and show their client any home. And in this agreement, a fee will be set stating how much the buyer's agent will be paid for their services. This is an agreement for the buyer to pay the buyer agent direct for their services, and this is where the change will have the largest impact. So now the obvious questions that you're asking, I'm sure right now, are what if I don't want to pay an additional fee? I don't want to pay my agent's commission to purchase a home. Or maybe you're asking, what if I don't have any additional funds for fees? Like I barely have what I need for my down payment and my traditional closing costs, my kind of old school closing costs. Or what if I only have money just for my down payment and I was planning on asking the seller to pay my closing costs anyway? Well, as you may have heard me allude to earlier, while the buyer and the buyer's agent must have agreed to a set fee for services, the buyer in the end is not necessarily the one that needs to pay that fee. Now, during the offer and negotiation to purchase a property, part of that offer can be a request for seller concessions to the buyer to pay for closing costs. But now, additional version of that request can be for the seller to pay for the buyer's agent commission directly or via closing cost concession. And this is an acceptable practice whether you're financing the property with a conventional FHA or VA loan. So the big question is, will this change the overall outcome of a standard transaction, or will this just change the process in how we get to that outcome? And I would say only time will tell. In the transactions that are happening this way already, all offers typically include a request for seller concessions to pay the buyer agent's fee. Now, just like in the past, when we ask for seller concessions for closing costs, this request is always considered from the perspective of what will my net proceeds be by the seller? And between that concession request, other terms of the offer, and the purchase price, the seller and the end buyer, via their respective agents, will come to terms that they all felt were agreeable. And I don't expect this part of the process to change at all. But one area where things will change is that a buyer that chooses to work with an agent to purchase a home must make a conscious, decisive choice on who that agent will be. Unlike in the past, a potential buyer and agents cross paths somehow. The buyer ended up on the agent's website. They saw a home that they wanted to see. They requested a showing. Then the buyer's agent scheduled that showing, met the buyer at the property, had good rapport with the buyer during that showing. And now the agent's working with that buyer to help them find a home. This type of casual connection for a purchase transaction, I don't believe will continue to be a thing. And honestly, this is likely the best aspect of these required changes. Real estate agents come in all shapes and sizes, all levels of experience, different levels of professionalism, different levels of competence, and unfortunately the industry has had a bad rap as a result. Yet these agents are helping these buyers make the largest purchase of their lives. So it really puzzles me still to this day on how nonchalant people can be with this decision. Well, I don't think that'll still be the case going forward, because if you're thinking about purchasing a home with a real estate agent, now you need to make sure that that agent can bring the value and expertise necessary to make that purchase process a smooth, pleasant transaction where you successfully achieve your real estate goals. And you have to agree to pay that agent and have the confidence that that agent will be able to negotiate on your behalf to get that fee covered in the transaction. So if you're considering a home purchase, now the first step in the process is to meet with a real estate agent in person, face to face, not while showing a home, but where you can sit down and have a professional conversation where you can learn how they operate, what they expect, what value they bring to the table, and the agent can learn what your needs are and what's important to you. So if you're considering a home purchase and you haven't had this meeting, please click the link in the description below to schedule a time on my calendar for an introductory call. And then if you're happy with how that call goes, we can schedule our essential first step in-person meeting, as this is going to be essential to making sure your real estate journey is successful and you successfully achieve your real estate goals. Now, I'm J.R. St. Julien with the St. Julien Real Estate Group of eXp Realty. Thank you for watching that video. Hopefully it was helpful for you. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out. I love to talk real estate and I look forward to talking to you. Take care.